If you are like me, then you would agree that dying sucks. If you are dying a lot on Soldier, the fastest class in the game, it is probably because you aren't picking your fights well enough. Now, I don't have any advice that is going to instantly transform you into a god tier Soldier player overnight, because developing this skill takes a long time. However, I can provide you with some general do's and don'ts that will help build the foundation for noticeable long-term improvement. Before I get to those, as well as some specific examples, I just want to define what picking fights means. Because Soldier can rocket jump, he is functionally the fastest class in the game. I know scouts run fast, and arguably sticky jumping is faster, but in practice, Gunboat Soldier wins. This means that, as a soldier, you have the freedom to run away from unfavorable situations. Now this sounds easy on paper, however it requires you to do multiple things correctly. First, you must realize that a situation is bad for you. As I will discuss shortly, there are many factors that influence this, and it isn't simply a binary yes or no, but rather a favorability spectrum, which is a term I just made up on the spot that sounds correct. Secondly, you need to actually retreat, which can be very easy in some areas, but nearly impossible in others depending on the map geometry. Where you are running to is important as well. Is it where you're going to actually be safe? Are there nearby health packs so you can regain the health you just spent jumping? Lastly, you need to decide when an appropriate time to re-engage is, because if all you do is run away, then you aren't really getting much value, even if you were staying alive all game. Team Fortress 2 is complicated. This is a good thing because if it weren't, the game would be really boring and nobody would be playing it. This is also a bad thing because it means writing scripts is hard. There is no way for me to possibly communicate everything I have learned in my thousands of hours playing, so all I can do is attempt to form some heuristics that can help you as you build your own fight-choosing intuition. In this section, I'll go over the factors which affect the favorability of a given situation, and then later on I will show some gameplay examples and discuss my thought process. The first and most obvious factor is your own health. If you are low health, you probably don't want to be fighting anyone. Now, like most of the things I'm going to mention, there are some exceptions, but typically speaking, taking a fight at less than 100 health is going to end poorly for you. Instead, jump away and try to collect some health packs, or maybe find a friendly medic to top off your health bar. On the flip side, having a hefty 300 HP buff might make a fight that you would normally run away from actually worth taking. Of course, if you have a pocket medic, this further enables you to pick fights. Just be sure not to go too fast and leave your medic in the dust. Ammunition also plays a role in your decision making. I am mainly referring to how many rockets you have loaded, however if you are almost out of reserve rockets, that can also be the reason why you decide to jump away. If you run into a healthy combat class, such as another soldier or heavy, and you don't have at least 3 rockets loaded, it is probably not smart to commit to that fight. Instead, use your remaining rockets to get to safety. Positioning is yet another thing to consider. If you are in a really strong spot, you can afford to take more fights than if you are somewhere weak. Strong positioning can also outweigh some other factors such as health and ammo. I've already talked about what makes a position good in other videos, so I won't get into too much detail, but to rattle off a few things, high ground is good, health packs make you more tanky, and holding choke points is ideal. I also consider how many teammates I have helping me in a fight, as well as how many enemies there are. If I am outnumbered 2 to 1, the fight may still be favorable for me if other odds are stacked in my favor, such as positioning or perhaps the element of surprise. Also, if you are perfect, only hit direct rockets, and have impeccable boots on the ground movement, then taking on multiple enemies at once is no sweat. However, if you are not perfect, being outnumbered makes fights inherently riskier because the opposing force simply has more effective health. On the contrary, if you have one or multiple teammates to help you fight one enemy, that skews the odds in your favor. Lastly, the class composition of both parties matters as well. Generally speaking, you want to avoid engaging scouts, pyros, and heavies head-on. I wouldn't say that Soldier has any bad matchups, but engaging a full health heavy spun up with no cover is a pretty bad idea. You want to fight scouts, heavies, and pyros on your terms. If it is a bad situation for you, then just don't engage. Against pyros, and especially against heavies, you want to have some corners to work with to act as cover. If you are close to mid-range and out in the open, if the heavy can aim, you are in trouble. If there are corners or props that you can use to break line of sight with the heavy, then the matchup is much easier for you because you can just hit the heavy with rockets from around the corner. Now, of course, there will be times when you have no choice but to take a fight that is bad. For instance, if you are defending the last point on payload, attack defend, or a 5CP map, then you can't really run away if your team is about to lose. With all of the general rules of thumb out of the way, let's take a look at some example clips. For our first example, I am defending here on Odyssey, and I jump in because the blue team is down a lot of players. I end up missing a bunch of rockets and decide to use my final rocket to jump away. From my safer position, I can afford to spam out this heavy even though I am somewhat low health, and my decision to retreat pays off as the heavy is killed by a teammate. Bombing back in blind like this was questionable, but I get my medic kill and play the I have a rocket left and have the gunboats equipped get out of jail free card. When rotating to this medium pack to heal back up, I get a lucky timing when pre-firing the doorway and one final kill on the Demoman. In this next clip we are on Badwater last, and I am trying to hold this choke point. I realize that I am no longer able to lock it down, and maybe I shouldn't be firing rockets at this Pyro, so I jump away. I see our team's Uber come out, and as far as I'm aware, the blue team does not have an Uber, so once I am healthy, I try and take the space that the Uber is making. The Pyro appears to be busy trying to airblast the Uber, so I'm able to shoot rockets at them, and then I clean up some kills by tires. I don't usually play 5 control points anymore, but most of these maps are great for this concept. Anyways, this heavy jump revs at me, and it goes poorly for him. I didn't feel the need to run away here because I had a corner that I was backing up to, and there is a hidden damage and accuracy debuff for the first second of being revved. Even if I missed a rocket, I would have made it to the corner, which is safe. If that heavy would have peeked the corner revved up, I would have had to jump away or damage surf in an attempt to break line of sight. Now at some point during that flank, I realized I was greatly outnumbered and my chances of surviving was to go into sewer and get the pack, which is exactly what I was able to do with that improvised wall jump, and I live by the skin of my teeth. Alright, this is Phoenix 2nd, and after rolling out, I see these 2 heavies. I want nothing to do with any of that, so I rotate over to the flank. Here, I make the mistake of ignoring that there is a chance of blue spawns coming this way, and I don't even look to my left to check. Luckily, when the revelation hits me, I am able to scurry away and live to fight another day. So in this next example, I picked a clip where I kept finding good fight after good fight, so I pushed my advantage until it was no longer favorable for me. I am shooting these rockets to splash both the NG and the Sentry. Normally, I would advise to run away from Ubers, but this Uber is no threat to me, and I will be on high ground above them for the post. That scout high-key robbed me of that air shot. Okay, here I kinda run away from this medic. Now, in this particular clip, the medic doesn't die or anything like that because of me leaving him, but I will make an effort to do that less. I collect a couple of easy kills on this catwalk, and then I get really greedy and push further up. This ends up working out for me, however, it is worth noting that this is really close to their spawn. I probably should have ran away after I killed the engineer, but my greed pays off and I get the demo too. Upon seeing that heavy who is a medic, I get the fuck out of dodge. You can see here I hesitate and shoot a spam rocket. I was definitely tempted to continue to greed, but decided against it. Alright, that is all I have for this video. Thank you for watching. Okay.